Now, we talked about Euro franc, pound franc yesterday. Okay, just wanted to update you on what's happening. Okay, first off, on Euro franc, you do see price continue to coming down. And of course, you know, I'm not surprised it breaks or tests this low. But of course, again, always ask yourself this question: how is price breaking that important high or low? Right? It's not just about breaking; it's about how it breaks. Okay, what pattern is it forming? Now, as of now, this is still a very, very slow pattern, right? There's no momentum breaking it. What we would say is a strong break. Okay, let me bring that in. It will be something like that. This is what we call a strong break, right? That is an impulse. Now, this break here that's happening right now is small. Okay, so it's still corrective. There's no momentum breaking it to the downside, which means that you want to focus on the reversal. Okay, so that's the analysis process, right? Various elements starts to come in. You have the high and low, you have price breaking it, you have the corrective pattern, the crawl pattern breaking it. You have this bigger corrective here as well. Okay, so quite a bit of elements are coming in. Now with that, you have come to the conclusion that you are interested in the upside. Okay, and with the analysis process, you understand that there's a higher chance this will come back up to this high, which is around 1.1150. Okay, so what we have done so far, I want to show you is the analysis process, right? With this whole steps here is for us to figure out, let's focus on buy, okay? And we understand this is where our final target can be. That's the potential profit we can aim for, okay? So that's the analysis step, which tells us focus on buy. Now, after that, okay, we know that the direction is clear, the target is there. Then comes the execution step where we start to look, okay, should we get involved now for the buy or should we wait? And if we want to get involved, where should we put in a trade? Okay, so that's where right now on the 4-hour chart, it might not be very clear. Okay, that's where, you know, you can play around with multiple time frames and even come down to like 1-hour time frame. And you can see the pattern forming here. The diagonal, the crawl is a little bit clearer, right? Okay, now obviously every pattern might have slightly different shape. Okay, again, this lines here. Okay, let me just remove this so to clean up the chart a little bit. Now this line here, again, we want to always remind you that we don't trade this trend lines. Okay, it's not like it touches it, we buy it. It touches the bottom, we buy. It touches the top, we sell. No, okay, we don't trade the trend lines like that. This lines, when I draw it in, is a way for me to communicate with you. Okay. Essentially, you know, when we draw in lines like that, it becomes very clear what pattern we are emphasizing. Okay, so it's like highlighting a certain pattern. That's the usage of the trend line over here, right? So I want you to understand we don't buy when price is here. We don't sell when price is at the top. Okay, these lines here, they can easily rotate. Okay, if I draw it something like that and I draw it something like that, okay, then you would start to see different patterns, right? I remember there's one daily live session. We talk about how just by adding in 2 lines, you can see very, very different things. I think that was in New Zealand dollar. Okay, again, I'll probably need to go and dig out that recording to find out that mini lessons and then put it up for you guys again. Okay, so lines itself, it's a way for me to communicate ideas, right? In fact, I would say that most traders, when they draw lines like that, at least for Elliott wave perspective, okay, is to communicate the idea. It's not really to execute trade. Okay, so over here, again, if I draw in these 2 lines, you can see this is a very obvious crawl. Okay, now if you bring in, let's say, some momentum indicator, you might start to see RSI divergence as well. Okay, in fact, from this part to this part, you can also see that divergence. Okay, from this low here, you can see, right? Price is coming down, but RSI momentum is going up. That's what we call a divergence, which means both of it are going in different direction, right? And if I bring it even to this here, you can see from this low, it starts to go lower, but our RSI is going up. Okay, so what does this simply suggest is that there's lack of momentum to the downside. Okay, which suggests that, again, there's a higher chance of reversal. Okay, it's not going to be 100% confirmed, but it's just probability. Okay, so there are 2 ways right now to get involved in it. Okay, in terms of execution, we can either look for a breakout of this crawl, which is definitely a bit more aggressive because you're looking to get involved once this reverse. Okay, there's pros and cons to it. But let's say if we're interested to be a little bit more aggressive and look for the breakout on this trade here, then this is where the high that you can focus on, right? Let me just remove this to clear off. Okay, depending on how aggressive you are, you can look for a breakout of this here at 1.0965 or somewhere around here, 1.0975. Okay, a difference of 10 pips. Now, the good thing about aggressive, let's say we are super aggressive, we put it here. Okay, I'll share with you the whole process of what goes behind, you know, or in my mind, or what I think about when I plan out the execution. Okay, so every decision you make in trading, there is pro and con, right? It's always a give and take. So if you're a bit more aggressive, the good side is, of course, if this starts to rebound from here and you get involved in this, okay, with that very first impulse, you can immediately shift your stops to break even and then let this trade just run. Okay, that's the good thing about being aggressive. Okay, of course, your risk to reward ratio might be a little bit better as well. Okay, from a very aggressive point of view. But of course, the downside of this is that this can easily just go up slow, something like that, and then just keep coming down, right? And then you get involved in an unnecessary trade, or even maybe this would be a loss, okay? So that's the downside of it, okay? So I want you to see, right? At least you know that is the strength and the weaknesses of being aggressive. Okay, so that's the first one, right? So let me show you roughly how we'll do it if we're going to be a little bit aggressive, right? Our breakout, let's say, is here. Our stop is below, which is super aggressive because that's about 30 pips of stops. Okay, now target-wise, of course, we already decided that at the very top. Okay, let me just remove all this. Okay, at 111.50, right? Okay, let me show you that, right? So up there. Okay, so the risk to reward ratio is, oops. Okay, the risk to reward ratio is definitely worth it. Okay, so you can see roughly it's about 1:6, right? It's a no-brainer risk to reward ratio. So that's how we plan out for execution. Okay, you realize, right? We understand the strength, the weaknesses. That, of course, as a trader, you need to decide, does that profile fits you? Okay, does the aggressive nature of execution fits you? Okay, and then of course we also consider the risk to reward ratio. Is it worth the risk? Okay. So that's the first way that we can get involved, okay, in terms of execution. Now, let me also share with you the second part, or I would say the second way that you can execute this trade, okay? The second method over here is a little bit more conservative, okay? So instead of trading this crawl pattern, we'll wait for that first impulse, okay? So the aggressive trader would have gotten with this first impulse. But for a conservative, we'll wait for this first impulse and wait for a mini flag. Okay, then only we get involved somewhere here. Okay, so that's the slight difference, because what a conservative trader will do is we want to wait for the break and for this setup to happen first. If that does not happen, then the conservative trader will not be involved in the trade and will probably even avoid some losses. Okay, because if let's say this is like what we say, right? If let's say this is just a very slow move that forms like that, then as a conservative trader, you will not get involved, okay? So you do not need to worry about managing it, or there's no losses that's going to happen, okay? But let's say, okay, you wait, and so that's the benefit, right, of being conservative. Now, the downside, of course, is that this can just go, and then it forms, let's say, a correction here, okay? And your risk to reward ratio, okay, roughly, let's say it's about 30 pips as well. Okay, your risk to reward ratio then will not be as great as that. Okay, so you can see, right, from 1:6, maybe right now you can only capitalize it on 1:4. Okay, so that's the downside of being a little bit more conservative. You need to give away a little bit of your profit, but at the same time, you're a little bit safer. Okay, and of course, sometimes, you know, the downside of being conservative as well can be that the fact, you know, this does not happen and then it just keep going. Okay, let me show you what I mean, right? It can be something like that. Sorry, there's a construction happening like next door. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. Okay, you know, something like that can happen, right? And if this happens, there's no way you're gonna get involved, right? There's no setup that we can get involved if let's say this is an impulse push like that, okay? So that's also the downside of being conservative. You might have to let this trade go, okay? Because you might not get that correction that you're looking for and it just takes off. Okay, so honestly, you ask me, what should you do then? Okay, a lot of traders would say, okay, so Kar Yong, you have explained this too. So what do we do? Which one do we take? Okay, now I want you to know this is a very common question many traders ask. And honestly, I can't give you a direct answer. Okay, because there are multiple factors involved in it. Number one, you need to understand your personality. Are you the aggressive side? Are you the conservative side? And then, of course, you need to also understand your risk tolerance, right? Are you willing to take losses? Or are you someone who prefer to be very, very safe? Okay. So again, each of this, factor would kind of influence your decision, whether you are slanting towards being an aggressive side or the conservative side, right? Again, there's no like which one is better because you need to, at the end of the day, fit that style into your personality. Okay, so it's just like driving, right? We always say, are you a fast driver or maybe a safe driver, right? On the highway, on the expressway, do you prioritize safety or do you prioritize like excitement, driving very, very fast? Okay, there's no which one is better, right? Because driving safe is safe, okay, but you lack perhaps the excitement on the expressway, right? Then those that enjoy, the thrill of it, of course, safety is a concern. Okay, so same thing to trading. There's no like which one is better, right? If you put someone who is looking for excitement and force that person to drive very, very slow, that person will be super bored and probably fall asleep. Okay, and then that can be very dangerous too. Okay. And then on the other side, if you get someone who is very safe to force that person to drive very fast, it can be very dangerous too because that person have yet to really experience that, that whole thrill and excitement, and that person might be very anxious and nervous. Okay. So same thing in trading. I hope you can understand that. Okay. There's no which one is better. You need to identify your style. Okay. So over here, the part is I do my very best to give you two approach, okay, and then I also share with you like how to be involved in whichever approach you decide to go to, but I can't give you a direct answer and say that okay, for you take this, for the other person use this method, right? There's no way I can give you an answer like that. Okay, so what I always do when I share with you all this here, I try to be in a little balanced perspective, okay, where sometimes we are a little bit more aggressive. Okay, if you have been following us, sometimes you realize that, right? Sometimes I'm a little bit more aggressive in the execution part. Sometimes a little bit more conservative. Okay, that's perfectly fine. So I mean, you do not need to like stand on one side of the camp and then just be conservative all the time. Okay, you can obviously try a little bit here and there, and then from there you perhaps have a much better understanding of, are you more comfortable with the safer side or are you more comfortable with the aggressive side? Okay, so I hope that helps, right? This one here is a little bit more in detail for today's lesson over here, using Euro franc as a case study here where we use it to talk about these principles. Okay, so Euro franc, okay, perhaps one thing addition to that is you also want to understand the nature of how this particular asset tends to move. Okay, now we talk about, I shared before, I don't really like the Euro franc pair is simply because it tends to chop around and then suddenly it just goes, right? Okay, it just pop like that. So over here, I would say we can decide to be a little bit more aggressive on this because it can just pop and never come back, right? So that's the nature that I've observed in this pair, and therefore I would tend to adopt a little bit more aggressive side in the execution. Okay, so hope that's clear. Okay, so what we can do is I will look up for this entry, and of course the stop will just be below here. Okay, so it's somewhere around, okay, we added a little bit of spread, so it's about 9 0965, right? 0965. The target here is 1.1150 and the stop is 1.0935, right? Okay, yeah, so something like that. You do see the risk to reward is 1:6 around there. Okay, so roughly like that. Okay, so again, for those of you who are a little bit more conservative, maybe you can continue to monitor this pair and let's see how it goes, right? For me, in today's this example, I'll take on a little bit more aggressive nature.